Welcome, AP Macroeconomics students, to our second distance learning video lesson. Happy St. Patrick's Day, and I hope everyone's doing well and your families are faring okay under the conditions of the coronavirus. I would urge you all to stay in, avoid large crowds, and practice good social distancing. In speaking with a couple of my current students, it sounds like it's a mix. Some people are staying in and abiding by the government's suggested guidelines, and others are going about their day as if not much is different. And I would urge you against that for the sake of society, for the sake of your older relatives, parents, grandparents, etc., who might be more susceptible to fatality from the coronavirus. Given that today is St. Patrick's Day, I want to talk a little bit about the Irish Potato Famine within the context of the coronavirus. The Irish Potato Famine occurred 175 years ago, killed 20 to 25% of the Irish population because of something called Phytophthora infestans, and that was roughly 1 million people dying. So certainly what we're enduring right now is not the first crisis, but hopefully if we manage it well, it will mitigate the long-term effects of what's going on right now. We are living through macroeconomic history as the Federal Reserve has chosen to cut interest rates to 0 or almost 0%, and there is talk of going to negative interest rates to ease lending, borrowing, to basically make things more affordable for the businesses who are struggling given the circumstance and the shutdown during the coronavirus scare. And of course, the federal government is ramping up a spending program to deal with the situation and help rescue the economy. So I want to wish you all a happy and a safe St. Patrick's Day. I would ask that you celebrate in the context of your own home and not go out and spread the virus or expose yourself to the virus. All right, so today's lesson is going to focus on what we've been talking about, and I've asked you to do activities 7.3, 7.4, and 7.5 in the workbook. We completed 7.3 when I last saw you. 7.4 is all about policies and economic conditions that affect exchange rates. And the first question deals with Japan's real GDP increasing. What would happen in this scenario is Japanese citizens would have more money in their pockets, so they would ultimately buy more domestic and more imported goods. So the demand for the US dollar would shift right, thus making the US dollar appreciate in value. And there would be an increase in supply of the Japanese yen. Let's remember, they'd be going to the foreign exchange market or our booth, and that supply of yen would increase, thus depreciating the value of the yen and appreciating the value of the US dollar. If you're getting confused with this at all, try to imagine our imaginary booth with Alan Wang, or I forget who else we had as our assigned foreign exchange booth people. It could have been Aidan DeSalvo, and perhaps in period 1, it might have been Shakira MacGyver, but I'm not really sure offhand. Let's move on to question 2. The point being, at the foreign exchange booth, the Japanese would be supplying dollars, yen that is, the Japanese dollar, and demanding US dollars in order to buy the American goods. In question 2, we see that real interest rates in the United States have increased relative to those in Great Britain. This would create a demand for the US dollar. British people would be hoping to buy our bonds and CDs and get those higher interest yields. As a result, the demand for the US dollar would increase, thus making the US dollar appreciate in value, and the supply of British pounds would increase at the foreign exchange booth or market, thus making it depreciate. They would not impact private investment, i.e. small businesses taking loans. we're looking at the foreign investment model here, where foreigners would be chasing after our higher interest rates, not a private investment scenario with Chicken Joe or Gemelli Pizza or anyone like that taking a loan for small business purposes. In number 3, it says Europe experiences a recession. This is a rare question on the AP, but if you were to see it, it would simply mean that Europe is having less or decreased GDP. Therefore, the workers will be less apt to have money in their pockets, and therefore the demand for the US dollar would decrease, thus depreciating the value, and the supply of euros in the foreign exchange market would also decrease. We'd have a supply shift to the left, and that would lead to an appreciation of the euro. This is a rare scenario, but nonetheless, we should be aware that during a recession, the foreign exchange market or booth would not be very busy because people in Europe would not have money in their pockets, and therefore they would not be going to the foreign exchange market to exchange currencies for imports or for tourism, etc. In question 4, the price level in in Canada increases relative to the United States. In this scenario, Canadians would be looking to buy foreign goods, those in the United States, because it's going to be less money since their price level increased. So the quantity of US dollars would be demanded more. We would see a demand shift to the right, therefore a appreciation of the US dollar, and the supply of Canadian dollars would increase in the foreign exchange market, thus leading to a depreciation of the Canadian dollar. Just to review, Canadians would want to buy US goods as they are cheaper because the price level has gone up in Canada. And in question 5, we see that the US government decreases taxes. This would be a fiscal policy, putting more money in US citizens' pockets, thus enabling them to buy more domestic and imported goods. So in this case, we would see the supply of US dollars increasing in the foreign exchange market, thus making the US dollar depreciate, and the demand for the Taiwanese dollar increasing, thus making the Taiwanese dollar appreciate. And the reason being, again, is US citizens are going to have more money in their pockets to buy both American goods and Taiwanese goods. And that about does it. So before we leave with this blank page, tomorrow was going to be a golden ticket day for Colin Logan and all of our other golden ticketers to celebrate St. Patrick's Day and have a day of rest. It looks like tomorrow all of you are golden ticketers. So, signing off saying, let's be safe, let's be smart, and let's pay attention to the macroeconomic world out there. Happy St. Patrick's Day, folks.